friends, welcome to the Point. In this session, we are discussing about conservation and management of soil. Soil management means giving an adjustment to the soil factors to maximize its crop products at the lower cost. Good soil management attempt is to preserve the best characteristics of the soil for too many years. The objective of the soil management is to control soil degradation and to improve its soil productivity. The fundamental objective of soil conservation measures are protecting the land surface from the impact of the rainfall, that is, from the erosion of the soil, and increasing infiltration of the rainwater, decreasing the volume and velocity of the overland flow, reducing soil erosion by modifying physical and chemical properties of the soil. Soil conservation measures. Soil conservation, it is necessary to preserve the soil for maintaining its soil fertility, productivity, water table, vegetation cover, spaces of trees and soil moisture. Soil conservation, it also includes techniques that is related to crop management. The soil conservation, they help to intercept raindrops and reduce their splash effect. They improve the intake of water by improving the content of organic matter in the soil and soil structure so that the rainwater is absorbed more by the soil. Let's discuss some of the measures that reduces the overland runoff and it helps in soil conservation. Alternate cropping. Alternate cropping means it is a technique for growing a crop for few seasons and then replacing it by another crop. Continuous growing of the same crop for over a period of time, it causes soil erosion. For example, tobacco. A good rotation of the crops, it helps in maintaining the soil fertility. Good rotation crops are small grams and legumes. This legume nodules, it traps the nitrogen from the atmosphere and makes it available to the plants in the soil. Another type of alternate cropping, it consists of a series of rows of one crop such as corn or soya bean in a wide stripe. The next stripe is then planted with a crop conserving soil like grass or grass legume mixture. The cover crop such as legumes, it traps the soil that erodes from the row of main crop. So it helps in preventing the spread of pest and plant disease from one stripe to another. So if the cover crop happens to be nitrogen rich legumes, then the soil fertility is restored. Judicious use of inputs. So there must be a balance in the use of fertilizers, water and pesticides. So as we use too much of water, it leaches the soil and it increases the salinity in the soil. So care must be taken that too much water is not supplied into the soil. Traditional agricultural practices with a special reference to legumes in cereal rotation, use of green manures and rural agricultural waste as compost, build-up of soil organic matter, base of fertility. So each and every farmer can prepare his own vermicompost on his farm and apply it to the soil. Earthworms which grow naturally in the soil, they are the indicators of efficient nutrient cycling present in the soil. So good soil management includes judicious use of inputs like water, fertilizers and pesticides. So maintenance of good soil structure is by employing careful tillage practices and adding crop residues. Careful fertilization and irrigation through soil testing and plant analysis. Proper use of marginal lands. So we know that marginal lands is not suitable for cropping and hence it can be checked on the slopes of the hills through the form of counter farming. Economic management for sustainable agriculture, that is for present crops as well as future plantations. Covering the soil with grass and trees to protect it from rain and wind. So conservation of natural wetlands to preserve natural drainage patterns as well as wildlife. Proper management of solid waste by recovery and reuse. Green manuring. In agriculture, we use green manure. Green manure, it is a type of cover crop. It is primarily grown to add nutrients and organic matter to the soil. This green manure crop is grown for a specific period of time and then it is plowed and incorporated into the soil. Green manures, they perform multiple functions that include soil improvement and soil protection. Leguminous green manures like clover, it contains nitrogen fixing bacteria in root nodules. So these roots, it collects the nitrogen from atmosphere and fixes it into the soil. Green manures, it increases the percentage of organic matter in the soil and therefore it improves water retention, aeration and other soil characteristics. The root system of some varieties of green manure, they grow deep in the soil and bring up nutrient resources unavailable to the shallower rooted crops. Crop rotation, it is a historical practice of green manuring which was used to allow soils to recover. Advantages of green manuring. It improves soil fertility, it supplies a part of nutrient requirement of the crops, it adds fresh matter to the soil and it supplies nutrients that is present in the biomass. So this can either be grown in sites and it can be incorporated or grown wherever and brought in for the incorporation in the field to be manured. Leguminous plants, they are largely used as green manure because they have a nitrogen fixing capacity. Compost. Composting, it is a biological process of conversion of organic material of refuse to a usable stable material. This is carried out by microorganisms that is present in the refuse. A good mix of browns and greens is the best nutritional balance for the microbes. Greens are fresh plant materials like green weeds from the garden, kitchen fruit, vegetable scraps, green leaves and tea bags, etc. The greens, they have more nitrogen in them. So nitrogen is a critical element in amino acids and proteins and it can be thought of as a protein source for the billions of multiplying microbes. Browns are dry and dead plant materials like straw, dry brown weeds, autumn leaves and wood chips or sawdust. These items, they are the source of energy for the compost microbes because they are dry. Browns often need to be moistened before they are used to compost system. So this mix also helps out for aeration and the amount of water in the pile. Farmyard manure. So from the beginning of agriculture, the utilization of the farm waste rotted by the means of urine and dung of animals, it has been the principal means of replenishing soil losses. The ideal method for the storage of organic manure is under anaerobic conditions at a temperature of 26 degrees Celsius. The manure heap, it gradually loses nitrogen and its improvement lies in storing the manure in watertight pits so that they can be completely closed. This allows the attainment of perfect anaerobic conditions. So the final product is not a fine powder. It is partially a rotted material which cannot get into pore spaces of the soil until further decay takes place. The soil, therefore, it has to do a good deal of work before the farmyard manure and it can be uniformly distributed through the soil mass. Plantations to check soil erosion. So crops like grass, groundnut, they have an excellent soil covers against erosion by water. So these crops, they provide a cushion effect against the raindrops. Close growing crops, They also help in controlling soil erosion by providing root channels through which water moves downwards. Vegetation encourages growth of earthworm and other living organisms that help to keep the soil open and receptive to raindrops. Pesticides and herbicides. A pesticide, it is a chemical or biological agent that kills animals or plant pest. Plant pest, it interferes with agricultural productivity. For example, aphid, a pest attack legumes. Aphids, they are destroyed by the pesticides. Herbicides kills weeds or the unwanted plants growing along with the crops. Pesticides, they also destroy insects and rodents, but they have harmful effect on man also. Chemical pesticides, they are non-biodegradable and their concentration in soil keeps on increasing with the successive application. For example, their presence in the algae may be low, but it goes on increasing in other members of the food chain like algae to fish, shellfish, and then man. This phenomenon is known as biomagnification. Danger of pesticides. Pesticides are being used more and more for the protection of crops from huge losses that occurs due to pest, and they have a number of side effects, and let's discuss few of them. Some individuals of the pest species, they usually survive even after the pesticide spray, and that survivors, they give rise to highly resistant generations of the pest. Many insecticides are broad spectrum poisons. Many pesticides, they are non-biodegradable in nature and they keep on accumulating in the food chain, and this process is called biological magnification. The hazardous pesticides, they must be replaced by the biopesticides like neem products. Further, insecticide pollutions can be controlled by using degradable insecticides like organic phosphates, use of short-lived chemical pesticides, use of biological control methods instead of insecticides. That is, the predators like body beetles and lacewings, they can be used against agricultural pests. Beetles, they can be used to control weeds. Parasites like calcid wasp, they also can control many pests. Pathogens like virus and bacteria can kill many pests. Decoy plants, that is, low value crops, they can be cultivated as they attract pests from high value crops. Rotation and diversification of crops can be practiced. Disease and pest resistant varieties should be used. Organic pesticides. Usually gardeners prefer to use natural or organic pesticides when they are trying to control a pest. Organic pesticides are those pesticides that come from natural sources, and these sources are usually plants, as in the case with pyrethrum, rotenone or rhyania, or also some minerals like boric acid, cryolite or diatomaceous earth. Organic pesticides, they are largely insecticides. The two types of biopesticides are biochemical and microbial. Biochemical pesticides, they have a similar structure to and functions like naturally occurring chemicals, and they have non-toxic modes of action. Insect pheromones, it is an example for naturally occurring chemicals that insect use to locate mates. Man-made pheromones are used to disrupt insect mating by creating confusion during the search for mates, or they also can be used to attract male insects to trap. Pheromones are often used to detect or monitor insects population and in some cases to control them. Microbial insecticide, it is another biopesticides, and they are also naturally occurring or genetically altered bacteria, fungi, algae, viruses or protozoans. An example of microbial pesticide is Bacillus thuringiensis. It is a naturally occurring soil bacteria and it is toxic to larvae of several species of insects. But it is not toxic to non-target organisms. Bacillus thuringiensis, it can be applied to plant foliage or incorporated into the genetic material of crops. Advantages of biopesticides. They protect future generations. The pesticides used in our food is 4 times exposed of at least 8 widely used cancer-causing pesticides, and the food choice will impact our health in the future. They prevent soil erosion. So soil, it is the foundation of farming, but chemically fertilized farming, as it is used excessively for getting extra yield, they cause soil erosion. They protect water quality. Water makes up almost 2/3 of our body mass and they cover 3/4 of the planet. So chemical pesticides, they contaminate the groundwater, thus pollute the primary source of drinking water too. Biopesticides promote biodiversity. Monocropping, it is a practice of planting large plot of land with the same crop year after the year. But this approach, it is tripled farm production and it has left the soil lacking in nutrients and minerals. To replace these natural nutrients, chemical fertilizers are used, which only increases the problem further. Healthy food. Organic farming, it starts with the abundance of nutrients in the soil and that leads to the nourishment of the plant and it gives flavor and taste to food, and that is why many chefs use organic foods in their recipes. Environment friendly. Organic inputs are biodegradable, residual free, easily available, cost effective, and it is non-polluting. Chemical manuring. Too much chemical manuring, it degrades the environment. The use of excess amount of nitrogen and the phosphate fertilizers, they find their way into the water bodies and they cause a phenomenon known as eutrophication. Eutrophication. Eutrophication is a process of depletion of oxygen from water body that occurs either naturally or due to human activities. Organisms like fishes, plants, etc., they decay and go down into the water body and they undergo decomposition. In this process, oxygen is extracted from the water body by making it gradually oxygen deficient, and in some extreme cases it leads to exhaustion of oxygen, and this phenomenon is known as natural eutrophication. The process gets accelerated further by the introduction of nutrients and chemicals by human beings through the discharge of domestic sewage, industrial effluents and fertilizers from agriculture field. As there is a consequent nutrient growth in phytoplankton and algae, it reduces the penetration of oxygen, light and heat into the water body. As a result, organisms die, draining water of all its oxygen, and this process is termed as cultural eutrophication. Eutrophication, it can be controlled, prevented and even reversed by reducing nutrient flow and adopting pollution cleanup methods. This can be brought about by wastewater treatment before discharge, harvesting and removal of algae and removal of dissolved nutrients by physical or chemical methods. Biofertilizers. Biofertilizers, it is 100% natural and organic fertilizer. It helps to provide and keep in the soil all the nutrients and microorganisms required for the benefit of the plants. Organic fertilizers, they differ from chemical fertilizers. In organic fertilizers, they feed our plants while adding organic material to the soil. Soils with lots of organic matter, they remain loose and airy. They hold more moisture and nutrients, foster growth of soil organisms and promote healthier plant root development. The peat moss, it is a plant that lives well in an environment which is poor in oxygen, but when it dies, it takes thousands of years to get decomposed. It helps to keep the water and nutrients to the plants. Branded biofertilizers. Tetonic. With a minimal 90% elemental sulfur, tetonic helps in improving overall growth and vigor of the crop plants. It stabilizes protein synthesis. Both these attributes are essential for higher yields. Biofert. The most powerful organic manure, its ingredients is derived from the neem and it provides a unique combination of nutrients for optimal growth and productivity of crop plants. Apart from improving the biological properties of the soil, it also improves the physical and chemical properties of the soil. Some of the long-term effects of bioferts include improving physical structure of the soil, improving biological properties of the soil, improving synergism with chemical fertilizers. Forest conservation. Soil is constantly being eroded by the wind, water and man's activities. Erosion means wearing away of the topsoil. Soil erosion, it refers to the removal of the topsoil either by natural agents like wind and water or by human activities. Planting of trees in the areas which they are not formally present is one of the important ways to prevent soil erosion, and it is known as afforestation. Joint forest management. Joint forest management refers to model of the forest management in which the local communities are involved in planning and conservation program. And this was made possible by two developments. First is because of an increase in population and poverty. New groups entered into the forest areas and they began over-exploiting the forest resource. And secondly, when the governments began to protect forests and declared them as protected areas. They viewed the local inhabitants as enemies of the forest and even tried to prevent them from entering the forest. It was around 1980s that the government started encouraging joint forest management to work together with local communities in the protection and management of forest resources. In the joint forest management, the local communities are allowed access to the forest areas and they are permitted to harvest the natural resources in a sustainable manner. What is the role of local people in the joint forest management? They are likely to have an excellent location specific knowledge of the resource base, the quality of the life of people. It is dependent on health of the natural resource in that particular area. They should have the knowledge of traditional methods of conserving the forest. Close association of local people would improve the resource base and it would help in the reduction of rural poverty. People can closely monitor the forest and as a result they are able to notice the changes that could have an impact on the environment. Social forestry. The term social forestry, it was first used by National Commission on Agriculture, Government of India in 1976. Social forestry means planting of trees and pasture development on village common lands, roadsides and canal ridges and along railways. Social forestry covers tree plantation activities in the non-forest areas for the benefit of the society. Social forestry is a forestry for the community development. It consists of restoration, reallocation, reorganization of existing forest lands and for the overall development of land and the people living in it. Joint management of the forest and its production process and the developing the socio-economic structure that makes the two possible ways. The important features of social forestry include rising plantations by local people, taking the pressure of forest and making use of unused land, letting local social economic conditions govern the structure and functions of the forestry, ensuring quick benefits, sustainable forestry along with short crop rotation, making use of easily implementable technology, distributing the benefits that is derived from such products which is equally among the people and socio-economically backward people. Objectives of social forestry. The main objective of the social forestry, it is recommended by the National Commission on Agriculture. It includes providing fuelwood, fodder for the cattle, timber and minor forest products to the rural people, utilizing the available land according to its productive capacity, developing of local cottage industries by providing raw materials, providing efficient conservation of soil and water to provide employment opportunity to the rural people, increase agricultural production by using cow dung as manure, fulfilling the recreational needs of the people, achieving all-round rural development as a part of integrated rural development program. Agroforestry. Agroforestry, it is a part of social forestry and it represents the intermediate stage between forestry and agriculture. Agroforestry refers to sustainable system of managing a piece of land through combined production of agricultural crops and forest crops and animal rearing to ensure the most efficient land use under a management system in accordance with the socio-cultural practices of the local people. Agroforestry, it aims to provide conservation of the land and its improvement in order to achieve a combined produce of the forest and agricultural crops. Objectives of agroforestry: to reduce pressure on natural forests for obtaining timber as well as non-timber forest produce, to check soil erosion and to maintain natural fertility of the soil, to maintain ecological balance, to make the best use of all available resources like land, manpower, livestock, ecological factors, etc. Importance of social forestry and agroforestry. The advantages of social forestry and agroforestry are they help to achieve an all-round rural development as a part of integrated rural development program. They give local people resources like land, labor, food, fuel and variety of forest products from the same land. They meet the local needs for firewood, timber, bamboo, fodder and other minor forest produce. They develop local cottage industries by providing raw materials. They foster ecological balance with proper utilization of farm resources. They provide efficient conservation of water and soil. They improve the aesthetic scenario of that area. They utilize wasteland and degraded lands. They aid industrial growth by providing forest raw materials. They provide supplement of food and fodder. In India, the National Research Center for Agroforestry, which is located at Jhansi, looks after the All India Coordinated Research Program on Agroforestry. That's all for the session. Thank you.